What's up, guys? I'm Travis, and you're watching our upgraded SCX6 Trail Honcho build series. Come on! Come on! Well, guys, we're up to video number 4 now of our upgraded SCX6 Trail Honcho build series. Now, in this video, we're going to be replacing that stock Spectrum steering servo, which has 555 ounces of torque, with a Power Hobby 1513 MG 1/5 scale servo that has 2,000 ounces of torque. We'll also be replacing the stock plastic servo mount with a Vitavon aluminum servo mount, and we'll be replacing the steering servo horn with a Vitavon aluminum steering servo horn. Besides that, guys, we went ahead and splurged a little bit. We're going to be replacing the servo link with a Vitavon aluminum steering servo saver link. Now, this special link looks kind of like a steering stabilizer on a vehicle. It's got a shock on it, which has a spring inside of it, and this is designed to keep you from destroying your servo. So we're going to check that out. Besides all that, guys, I'm going to show you how to square up your axles. We're going to adjust all of the links and the panhard bar as well, so that we can get this thing going down the trail as straight as possible. You're not going to want to miss this video, guys. Stay tuned. So guys, we're going to start with ripping out all of these stock parts so that way we can get a weight, size, and length comparison for you guys, and then I can go ahead and give you the skinny on all of these specifications as well, and then we'll unbox the new parts, throw them in here, and get them adjusted. So for the upgrades we're doing today, you do not need to remove your body. You could just prop it open with a stick or something. That'll give you enough access to be able to go ahead and get to all these parts we're replacing today. But I think it's going to be a little bit easier with the body just out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and remove the body so that I can get better camera angles for you guys and get you a better view of what's going on. So this is going to be a pretty easy upgrade today, guys. Now that our body is off, we're going to go ahead and remove the cover that houses the receiver and the rest of the electronics. That way we can unplug our servo, and it'll also give us greater access to be able to get the servo out as well as the servo mount. So to take this cover off, it's held on by 3 Allens. There is one right here in the front, and there are 2 back here that are connected to this brace, and then this cover will come right off. Now with that off, you can see our receiver right here. Our very first port right here, this JST is plugged into on the receiver. It is labeled steering. So we're going to go ahead and gently remove this steering JST from our receiver. So once we get that off, now we're going to go ahead and remove these 4 Allens right here on both sides that are holding on the servo, as well as taking off the Allen on the bottom that is connecting the servo link to the servo horn. Now we can go ahead and just pull our servo right out of there. Now you have your servo horn here in the front, which is going to hit the bottom of the brace, so you're going to want to take it out at a little bit of an angle like this. There you go. Now we can go ahead and get to that plastic servo mount we're going to be replacing, which is right here. You've got 2 Allens right here that are connecting it to the servo tray, and that's it. Okay, so the last thing we'll be removing from the truck today is this Allen right here, which is going to go ahead and release our servo link that goes and connects to our servo horn. And when you take this Allen out, it's going to also go ahead and release the tie rod from the steering knuckle on this side. Don't worry about it. Just go ahead and let it hang there. We'll be putting it back in soon. Now, I did remove the inner fender well here. You'll notice it's gone so that I could get a better view right here for you guys of this bolt, and also that way I can get a straight shot on the head and not strip it out. So I bought my steering servo saver link in a set from Vitavon. This is the way it comes with your tie rod here, your panhard bar, and then of course the steering servo link. Now this also comes with 2 Allens to go ahead and attach your tie rod. The small one is for the driver's side, and there's that long-winded one that we took out of the passenger side that will hold on the steering servo link and the tie rod to the steering knuckle. You can also get just the steering servo link, guys. You don't have to get this whole set. I'm going to go ahead and leave a link in the description to both so that you can look up the set, or you can get just the steering servo link itself. Now in this video we will only be using our servo link today. I'll go ahead and use the other tie rod and panhard bar in a much later video when we're connecting up our axles with all the other links. So guys, I did go ahead and measure these out with our caliper here to check the links on them. They are both adjustable from 150 millimeters, which is completely compressed or screwed in, all the way out to 165 millimeters. That's really hard to push down. I don't know what size spring that is, what the rate is, but that's a very difficult spring to compress. So I think we'll be okay there. I do like the fact that all of the rod ends here are aluminum instead of plastic. That's great. Let's go ahead and get a weight on these guys so we can compare that. So for everyone who hasn't seen the other videos on this upgraded build series, we are weighing each part that we install on this truck so that we know exactly where we're at. So you'll be able to watch the video and see each part individually, what they weigh against the stock part versus the upgraded. And also at the very end, I've got an ongoing tally so that we'll know exactly how much weight we've added to this truck by all the upgrades that we've done. Okay, let's go ahead and start with our stock steering link here. We are measuring in grams today, and that comes up to 67.8 grams. Let me write that down. Okay. Let's go ahead and do our Vitavon steering link now. Wow, that actually weighs less. This is the very first upgraded part that I have put on this truck that weighs less than the stock one. That's pretty good, guys. So we're coming in at 61.6 grams. Next up, we have our aluminum servo mount here from Vitavon. This comes in a package by itself, so you will have to reuse your same Allens again. Let's go ahead and cut this open here. This is really nice quality, guys. All of the Vitavon aluminum stuff is made out of 70-75 aluminum. And I gotta tell you, they do a really good job at CNC machining all of this. Let's compare this to our plastic one here. So it does look like this is gonna be a little bit heavier. We'll put it on our trusty scale here soon and find out. But this is the direction you'll be mounting it in. So your 2 holes here are where you mount your servo to, which is right here. And then look at all the adjustment you have here on this servo mount, so that if you were using a bigger or a smaller servo, you've got all that adjustment there. Right here, you do not. Let's go ahead and get it weighed. Back over here to our trusty scale again. Let's go ahead and see what that plastic stock servo mount weighs. It is coming in at 2.5 grams. Okay. Let's check out our Vitavon aluminum one. I'm sure this is going to be quite a bit heavier. Oh yeah, we're almost triple the weight on this one here, coming in at 8.8 grams. Well, here's our Vitavon servo horn here. There you go. Same beautiful CNC quality, guys. 70-75 aluminum. It says Vitavon on it, and also 15T, which means that's the tooth count for the servo. That is exactly the same as our stock servo steering horn here. This has a 15 tooth count as well. Now, if you'll notice, the stock one is quite a bit bigger, and it's got just a little bit, not very much, just a little bit more throw to it than the Vitavon does. Now, you can use this servo horn here on our Power Hobby servo. It does slide right on and fit great with the 15 tooth count, but this hole is smaller than the hole here on the Vitavon servo horn. So you'll be using a little bit bigger Allen for the Power Hobby servo, which is going to fit right into this Vitavon one. If you decided you wanted to use the stock servo horn on the Power Hobby, you can still do that. Like I said, you're just going to have to drill this hole out right here to be able to accommodate the bigger Allen that screws into the servo gear. So the stock servo horn here is coming in at 10.2 grams. All right, and our Vitavon aluminum servo horn is coming in at 6.8. Well, all right, guys, here's the star of the show today. This is the Power Hobby 1513 MG 1/5 scale waterproof 2,000 ounce steering servo, guys. Let me go ahead and give you a couple of specifications on this. This does come with a brushless motor, which is going to give you long life and monster torque. Now, all this is included inside of heat sink aluminum case. It's got all steel gears and comes with 5 ball bearings. Now, this is compatible with 3S and 4S LiPo, and it does have the 15 tooth gear on top of the servo, like I was saying. Now, it's got a magnetic sensor that is waterproof, IP67. This also comes with a link so that you can hook this up for direct power to a separate battery other than just going directly to your receiver, which is going to give you all that monster torque you're looking for. Now, something that's really cool here, guys, and this isn't available right now, but it's coming soon. They have a Bluetooth app available for this, to where you can go ahead and program this however you want to. Now, that does require the Power Hobby USB to go ahead and do that, but that is coming soon. I think that's just awesome. Now, the operating voltage on this is 7.4 to 16.8 volts. Now, let me go ahead and flip this over here and we'll show you the specifications on the back for this monster torque that you're getting. Okay, so at 16 volts, they are saying here that you can get 2,000 ounces of stall torque. Like I said, at 16.8. Now today, for purposes of this video, we're going to be running 14.4 volts, which is 4S, and that's going to give us 1,700 ounces of torque. Now guys, the stock servo in here, like I said, is 555 ounces. So we are more than tripling our stall torque on this servo just by running the 14.4. We're not even into the 16.8. And we're also going to be doing this at 0.09 of a second on 14.4 volts. If you go to 16.8, it's all the way down to 0.08. Well, let's open up this case here and see what we get. So you got a bag of all kinds of hardware here. It's got your Allens to go ahead and mount the servo to the servo tray, as well as the bolt to mount the servo horn onto the servo. You've got some bushings here that are rubber, as well as the brass spacers that go in between them. And then you've got your servo here, this monster servo here. Wow, this thing is heavy. Wow, good packaging too, guys. They got this thing in here really good. Okay, so there's our monster servo. That is pretty heavy. I'm kind of curious. We get this on the scale to see what this thing weighs. It does come with your lead here. It's pretty long. So you've got your JST here, which will plug into the receiver. And then you've got this other lead here, which you can connect either one of these here, the 3S or the 4S, to go ahead and connect directly to your battery to get that direct power. Now, other than that, they do come with multiple servo horns in here. If you wanted to use theirs, so lining these servos up here side by side, I went ahead and pulled some measurements on them. From left to right or side to side this way, we have exactly the same width. There's no difference at all. Lengthwise, from here to here, we are 6 millimeters longer than the Spectrum 905. Now, as far as height goes, the Power Hobby 1513 is also 4 millimeters taller than the Spectrum 905. So that's where our Vitavon servo mount is going to come in with all that adjustment that we have. You can see right here where you're going to be mounting the servo. The back is the same lined up. On the front, we are 6 millimeters longer, so that was going to help us out quite a bit. All right, back to our trusty scale for the last time today. Let's go ahead and see what our stock servo weighs here. Well, these are pretty heavy. I wasn't expecting it to be that heavy, but we're coming in at 172.6 grams. Let's go ahead and check the Power Hobby one out, which I know is going to be a lot heavier. Let's see what we got here. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's quite a bit heavier, coming in at 290.9 grams. So I guess all the weight that we saved on those other two parts today is not even going to come close to making up for this servo. But that's okay, because the stock servo is not even going to come close to the power we're making with this beast. All right, guys, time to go ahead and get this thing back together. We're going to go in the reverse order we took it apart, meaning we're starting off right where we left off with the servo link. As you're putting this in, guys, do not use a power screwdriver to put this back in. You don't want to strip out the plastic threads on there. All right, guys, now we're going to go ahead and square up our axles to each other as well as the frame. Now, there's many different ways you can do this, okay? There's many different instruments that will do this. You can use lasers, straight edges, all kinds of instruments that will make this super straight. Guys, this is a crawler. It crawls over very uneven ground at a very slow speed. If this was a race car on a flat track, I'd want this as perfect as I could possibly get it, and I'd use lasers and everything else. We're not doing that today. I'm going to pull a couple of measurements here, but for the most part, we're going to do this by eyeball. So all you guys can do this at home. You don't need anything special other than a tape. Now, we're going to start with the rear axle here, and I want to make sure that the rear axle is square to the frame before we start. All of your links that are on here, where the rod ends attached to the rear, we don't want to see any gap. We want all of the rod ends closed up to the link as close as possible. And if this is a stock vehicle for you and you've done nothing to it at all, Axial pretty much makes them straight from the factory. Okay, so you're ahead one point there. So now that you've got your rod ends in the rear tight against the links and everything is as square as we can get it, go ahead and do the same thing to the front links. Now, the front only has a 3-link set up on it, so go ahead and adjust all 3 links and rod ends until they're tight. That should be fairly square once again, but if it's not, I'm going to show you how to set it up. So the next thing we're going to want to do here, guys, from the factory, Axial sets your tires so that there's a little bit of toe in. And I'm going to exaggerate this to show you, but each tire has a little bit of toe in on both sides. That's the way it's set up from the factory. We're going to want to eliminate that toe in right now so that we can get everything squared up, and then we'll put it back. Now, this is real easy to do. Right here, there's a hole in the center of your link. You're going to take a small Allen that fits into there, and you can put that in there, and then you can adjust it left or right, which is up or down, to bring the toe in or to take the toe out. So for right now, by eyeball, adjust this so that all of your toe is being taken out, and it looks like your tires are lined up with the rear as straight as you can get them, and these right here are nice and straight with no toe in. That's going to set us up for the very next step. With your steering or this tire as straight as possible, you want to look right down the top of this front tire and line it up with the top of the rear tire. Can you see how they're kind of straight in line with each other right now? And remember, guys, we're eyeballing this, so it doesn't have to be super crazy critical, but we're trying to get as close as we possibly can. So once you feel those are straight with each other, go ahead and turn it sideways. And what we're going to do now is we're going to measure from center of axle or from the nut to center of axle or the nut here. with a tape measure. Now be careful, if you touch this tire, because our servo is not hooked up yet, you're going to move it. So it's not a big deal, but just get it as close as you can by eyeballing both of those center to center. And on this side, I have got 19 inches. So now that I know that, I'm going to flip around to this side, and we're going to go ahead and do exactly the same thing. And once again, whether you have to move this or not, make sure this tire is lined up with the rear tire so that they are straight in line just like that. Now we'll go ahead and do that again. From this side here, I have got 19¼ inches. So what that's telling me is this axle is not square to the frame. The front on the driver's side is kicked off a little bit more than the other side. So because my links here and rod ends are already as tight as they can get, I'm going to have to go and flip it back to the passenger side, and we'll go ahead and adjust these links until my measurement here from axle to axle is 19¼ like the other side, and that's going to square us up. So now that we've got our axles square to each other and the frame and all the tires are parallel with the frame, we can move on to the next step. Now what we want to do is we want to take our axle and move it left or right, whichever way we need to go, so that it's centered up on this frame. And guys, I gotta say, from the factory, Axial did not do a very good job. Mine was off quite a bit. But let me go ahead and show you how I did that. Now, do not use your body as a reference point because it's too flimsy and it's just not on there good enough. We're going to go use our bumper because it's mounted to the frame and it's centered in the frame. And what you're going to do is go ahead and turn your tires so you're looking down the tops of them once again, and we're going to use this edge of the bumper right here, and we're going to eyeball it to the tread. Where is it at? This is lining up with this inner part right here of the tread. Okay, so we want to adjust our panhard bar to move the axle to the left or the right until we have exactly the same thing over here, which is what I did. Now you can look down this bumper right here and you can see that it's lining up with the inner part of this tread. So they're the same. Now let me show you how I did that. So here is your panhard bar right here, and there's the little hole you're going to put your Allen in to adjust it left or right. Remember, you have to have your steering link disconnected to do this, otherwise it's going to pull on that side and twist it and it's not going to be correct. So all you have to do is just go left or right here, and then that's going to take your axle left or right until you feel that it's centered by eyeballing it right down the edge of the bumper. So now that we've got the axles all squared away, no pun intended guys, but that worked out pretty good I guess. What we're going to want to do now is we're going to want to go ahead and set up our servo. First thing we're going to want to do is take the radio and turn our steering trim to 0 or dead center. That way we've got plenty of adjustment either way at the very end of this process to make it go straight. If you are using one battery to run your truck, no problem. You can go ahead and plug your battery lead into the balance port just like that. No big deal, you're good to go as long as it's not more than 4S. If you are using two batteries in a parallel circuit like this, see how it goes to the car here, and then you've got a lead for each battery. This is a parallel series or a parallel circuit. If you're using this, you can go ahead and you can plug your balance lead into either battery. It doesn't matter. Now here's a very important part. If you are using a series circuit, it's going to look like this. This goes to your car, this goes to one battery, this goes to the other battery. You see here how I've only got one positive on this circuit, and here we have a negative and a negative. If you're going to plug in this servo into the battery balance lead, you need to plug it in to the side that has the two negatives. This is super, super important, guys. If you plug it into the side that's got the positive, you could see a smoke show, you could burn up your receiver, your ESC, your servo, you could catch something on fire. So please, and I've got such a great video on this that I did not too long ago. I'll put a link in the end so that you guys can watch that if you want to. It completely explains the battery setup and the differences between parallel and series and what the advantages and disadvantages are. But if you are running a series circuit, make sure you plug in your battery side to the balanced lead with the 2 negative wires. Super important, guys. For what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a separate battery here, and I'm just going to go ahead and plug it directly into the balanced lead on this separate battery, which has nothing to do with the batteries I'm using for my car, and that's how I'm going to power this so there's no problems whatsoever. So now I went ahead and I've plugged in the JST connector from the servo back into the servo steering port right here on the receiver, and we went ahead and plugged our battery in as well. Now we can turn on our radio, we can turn on our car. And remember, the reason why we did this was so that we could get this gear here centered perfectly in the range of travel that it has. So once everything's set up, and remember to go ahead and turn your radio to 0 for the steering trim or dead center. Now you're going to want to go back and forth so that it lines up, and when you let go of your steering, now it's set up for dead center of the travel. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take our servo horn here, and we're going to try to line this up best we can with center of the servo. Now this may not be perfect. It's only 15.2, so there's not a whole bunch there of adjustment. But see how it is right here? It's not perfectly centered. If I put it on the other side, it's quite a ways off. So go with the side that is closest to center for you and go ahead and push it down on there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our center Allen here, this piece right here, and we're going to put some Loctite on it and screw it down into the center of the servo, nice and snug. Then we're going to take our pinch bolt right here out and put some Loctite on that and snug that down. And guys, you want to get these pretty tight, but remember, don't strip them out. Just get them super snug. The Loctite's going to hold it in there for you just great. And leave your car on while you're doing this so that you don't accidentally move the gear on the servo and it's out of square. With it on, I can do whatever I want to. It's always going to go back to centered. Now next, to finish setting up our servo, we're going to go ahead and mount the servo mount to the servo first. That way when we drop it in, the adjustment will be irrelevant. It'll just sit where it wants to and we can screw it down. And by the way, I did put Loctite on all of those screws before I tightened them down. Now once you get them tight, go ahead, and I just routed my servo wires back behind the servo exactly the same way it was routed from the factory. And then when I came out the other side, I went ahead and took the servo wire and the battery wire and I just pulled them apart so that I could have the servo wire going to the JST connector in the receiver, and that way this one sticks out a lot further over here so I could figure out where I want to mount my third battery and have a little bit of extra room there. Okay, with your steering as straight as you can get it, by eyeball, go ahead and adjust this rod end here in or out until it matches up with your servo horn. Now there are two sides to this rod end. One side you can see the eye is sticking out. The other side, the eye is countersunk. You want the side where the eye is sticking out going to your servo horn. And go ahead and leave your car on when you're tightening that down. That way your steering doesn't turn. Now you're pretty much done. Go ahead and take your radio and adjust your steering trim so it'll take up anything else in here you couldn't get, so it makes it as straight as you can possibly do by eyeball. Then what you're going to do is go ahead and turn side to side, left and right, and look really good. Make sure none of this linkage is binding on anything. Make sure your tires aren't hitting. If it is, you might have to adjust your endpoints both left and right. Guys, I've got a great video on that. It was the last video I did. I'll put that in the links in the end, so you guys can watch that too and see how I adjusted my endpoints. After you're all done with that, go ahead and turn your tie rod down just a little bit so that you're getting just a little bit more toe in. Not very much at all. I'm talking from dead nut straight, just a very little bit, like one turn or something. You only want a little bit of toe in, not a whole bunch. After you're done with that, the only thing left to do is put this on the ground and find a nice long straight piece of concrete that's flat and just go ahead and run it down there and adjust your steering trim even more until your car tracks perfectly straight. I like to find a good expansion joint in concrete or something. Almost all of them have this, and you can run right down that expansion joint and you'll be able to tell if it's veering to the left or to the right. Just go ahead and adjust your trim and you're all set. Wow, that is lightning fast and feels like it has got a ton of power behind it, guys. I can only imagine when I get out there on the trail. I mean, I bet I could put a 50-pound rock right here and just turn the steering real easy and push it right out of the way. That's going to be awesome. That was a great upgrade, and I'm really happy that I was able to save the stock servo instead of destroying that. I mean, with the weight of this and the tires we're adding and everything else to it, we're putting a lot of pressure on that stock servo. I hear tons of people saying that they destroyed that servo in here. I'm super happy we got lucky enough to get it out before that happened. And as far as the servo saver goes, I don't really see any difference here. It feels pretty tight. I will let you guys know in the next video after I get out there and run this around a little bit. I'll let you know what I think of it. I'll let you know if it's taking up any of our range of motion, or if it's a little bit weak, we'll replace it. But for right now, I think all of this was a super great upgrade, guys. Well, I guess upgrade number 5 is on the way next. Until then, you guys go play, go have fun, do whatever you do to make yourself happy. I'm Travis. You're watching Upgraded RC. Peace out.